As for the prospects and predictions in other areas of technology, the most authoritative futurist today is Google CTO Ray Kurzweil, and all thanks to the fact that he is the forefront of artificial intelligence research and his predictions are more than 80% true so far. Kurzweil's general idea is that technology develops exponentially because each discovery contributes to the development of the next. The statistics of recent decades only support this assumption. For example, in recent years, the use of renewable energy has grown exponentially, doubling every 4 years. Moreover, the share of solar energy and its consumption is growing even faster, so Elon Musk's business in the solar panel market obviously has great prospects. Researchers believe that 100% renewable energy will replace fossil fuels by the early 30s. This will also be facilitated by the constant cheapening of alternative energy. Thus, the cost of solar energy over the past 10 years has fallen in price by more than 80%. Among alternative energy sources will not only be the sun. For example, forests could become the energy stations of the future. BioO, a clean technology company, is developing ways to generate electricity from plant photosynthesis. Ocean thermal energy is currently the largest but underestimated source of renewable energy. And right now, startup Blue Rise is working to create an energy breakthrough, generating utility-scale electricity by converting ocean thermal energy. But it's not energy that really worries us. Will there be a place for humans in the world of the future, specifically a workplace? By 2050, about 50% of occupations will disappear. First of all routine operations will be gone, which will be taken over by both physical robots and neural networks. Artificial intelligence software will control robots in smart factories, passenger and cargo drones, do accounting, write reports, research markets, and perform most administrative functions. Smart robots will occupy positions such as security guards or cooks in fast food and street food, waiters, warehouse pickers, and couriers. Many companies have even replaced much of their human resource departments with artificial intelligence, which handles recruitment, initial interviews, and performance evaluations. Some corporations are even using artificial intelligence to fire employees in a meta-universe environment, which removes the human element from such fateful situations altogether. So, who can fear for their jobs? First and foremost, those who are in the top 10% of professionals in their professions. Also, professions that require a high level of creativity, empathy, and flexibility are relatively safe. And of course, those who research artificial intelligence, develop robots, and service automated solutions will not be out of work. Does this mean that our lives will get worse? Probably not. In the 1800s, 80% of the population worked on the land. Today, only 2% do this type of work. In the 1920s, 25% of the working-age population in developed countries worked in factories and plants. Today, there are more factories, but they employ only 9% of the labor force. It's true that the population of the world has grown considerably over the years. On the other hand, today in large cities, about 65% of the population work in information and earn through professions that no one had even heard of 30 to 50 years ago, and there will be new professions in the coming decades too. But in general, the statistics that many futurologists and researchers are so fond of say that the standard of human life is constantly rising as technological progress develops. This is helped by the fact that almost all technology is becoming cheaper over time, and this applies not only to electronics. For example, cheaper DNA sequencing has made biotechnology more affordable. Today, it's cheaper for researchers to identify genetic changes that make that possible. For example, cancer immunotherapy, which can significantly increase the chances of survival even for people in stage 4 cancer. And in the future, such personalized medicine will make treatments less invasive, safer, and more effective. Breakthrough in medicine will be rapid and accurate diagnoses using invasive and non-invasive sensors and AI. Kurzweil says there will be a mass market for medical and other implant gadgets as early as 2025. The development of 3D organ printing will also have a huge impact. Scientists have long been able to print cartilage in arteries and are now actively working on creating organs such as liver, thyroid, heart, and so on with the help of bioprinting. Google CTO predicts that medical 3D printers will appear in hospitals at any level in as little as 10 years. 3D printing in general is considered to be a technology that will make manufacturing cheaper in all areas of industry that it will spread to. Physicist and futurologist Michio Kaku believes that in the future, 3D printers will rule the market for manufacturing goods. Everyone will be able to create customized items according to their taste and needs. For example, print toys as a New Year's present for children according to their drawings. Or get the sneakers of your dreams by measuring your foot with a laser and sending a request to the factory, where a printer will make you a comfortable pair of shoes and a drone courier will deliver them right to your doorstep. As far as drones, Ray Kurzweil suggests that in 2024 it will be illegal for a person to drive a car that is not equipped with a smart driver assistance system, and by 2033 the roads will be completely filled with unmanned cars. Now let's shift gears to artificial intelligence. Today, neuroimaging technology is constantly improving. Scientists can already observe the formation of individual neural signals in real time, which helps them gain insight into how the brain works. This contributes to the creation of neuromorphic chips, whose architecture and principles of operation are based on biological neural networks. Such artificial neurons provide extremely high speed and performance, learning right along the way. They're capable of processing dynamic tasks, for example, recognizing smells, speech, or images in video sequences, as well as performing recognition with prediction from incomplete data. Given that the amount of neural network computation doubles every 3.5 months, neural networks will begin to explore everything intelligent humans can do in the coming years. They will be able to track even information that we can't capture in text, thanks to natural speech recognition technologies. And while in the past, most experts didn't want to talk about general artificial intelligence, today many consider it achievable and possible. According to predictions, in 10 years, artificial intelligence will have mastered all human skills and will be able to demonstrate reactions indistinguishable from those of humans. Moreover, apparently, neural networks will surpass humans in every area they can master. And of course, developments in AI will help create advanced robots. By the end of 2020s, robots are capable of fully autonomous complex actions and will become as commonplace as a refrigerator or your coffee maker. They will finally master the real-world environment through accelerated learning and simulations and sharing experiences with each other. All of this will be possible thanks to 6G technology and beyond, exponentially increasing the amount of data collected by sensors. Also, 3D printing and development of a new material will make robots very similar to humans. So, what will happen next? Will there be a rebellion of artificial intelligence in the intelligent robots? Such a scenario is actively promoted by science fiction, but most experts consider it unlikely. Until now, technology and engineering has only enhanced human capabilities, and it will be this way in the coming decades. Moreover, it will affect the immediate possibilities of each person. Thus, we will become smarter by 2030s due to the progress in creation of brain-computer interfaces. And it will not necessarily be chips implanted in the brain. Non-invasive interfaces will be greatly developed, and they are expected to provide bidirectional information exchange by 2050. By being able to connect our brain's neurocortex to a computer with internet access, we will be able to receive and process information many times faster. Also, neurointerfaces will be able to transmit visual, audio, and other sensations to the user's brain. The images and experiences created by these devices will almost be indistinguishable from reality and unique to each user, since they depend on the structure of the brain. As for chips implanted in the brain to overcome effects of trauma and serious illness, we've talked about them particularly in the advances of Neuralink, and you can find that episode here in the tip. But the changes will not only affect our intellect, but also our bodies. Futurologist Michio Kaku is convinced that soon we will gain advanced vision with smart contact lenses. Already, there's glasses in which doctors can see MRI scans of a patient right during the surgery. And in the future, the lenses will include built-in cameras, Wi-Fi, augmented reality, night vision, thermal vision, zooming, and text messaging capabilities that will be projected in front of your eyes. Will people start improving themselves physically by adding robotic body parts or implanting implants that enhance professional capabilities and skills? The transhumanist movement says yes, but whether this will be the future for everyone is still an open question. At least technology will be advanced enough for such changes. By the 2030s or 2050s, there will be a lot of smart cities on the planet, but we'll talk to you more about these technologies in an upcoming episode. Subscribe to the Pro Robots channel, like this video, And don't miss any new episodes from the world of high tech. One of the most promising technologies in food is 3D printing. The technology allows you to create food from a wide variety of components. It mixes them in the most bizarre ways and creates shapes and textures of your choice. 3D printing will allow you to customize the final meal according to your needs and taste. It reduces waste, it allows you to eat more properly, and it may completely overturn the way we think about taste. Once the technology is perfected, it's going to provide unlimited possibilities for creating new foods by changing the ratio of ingredients and their final physical form on the plate. 3D printing is planned to replace food from tubes for astronauts. The startup Redefine Meat already uses the technology to make artificial meat look, smell, and have the structure and juiciness of a real piece of beef. In doing so, 3D printing can reproduce more than 70 different sensory factors of meat using vegan components that mimic muscle, fat, and blood. Robotic chefs can also change the familiar taste of food when they learn not to just act according to a template, but also create new dishes. For now, the existing systems, whether it's a robot for making pizza or a sophisticated robot kitchen mole, whose robotic arms can carefully repeat the movements of chef's hands, act according to a preset pattern. Mole is trained on the movements of famous chefs whose recipes are stored in the robotic kitchen's memory. But the robot can also be customized if you give it a set of ingredients and a sequence of movements, such as adding, stirring, or flipping. In the future, such robots in restaurants and at your home will be able to cook dishes you want, which you simply order in an app while you're going to and from work. When artificial intelligence is added to the machines, they will be able to offer you new and tasty healthy dishes themselves. It's possible that they will be prepared from ingredients grown from stem cells, collected from donors, and cultured in a laboratory. This is how meat is already produced in vitro, and fish will be produced in the future. Companies such as Just are already experimenting with chicken nuggets, sausages, and even foie gras. But for now, this way of obtaining products is very expensive. But vertical farming has every chance of becoming mainstream in the near future. There's already vertical farms and gardens in South Korea, Sweden, Singapore, and now the USA. There's over 50 of them in Japan, and Russia has its own startup, iFarm. iFarm's vertical farms are controlled automatically with the help of the iFarm GrowTune electric platform. It optimizes the operation of the farm so that the crops are good, mature, within predictable timeframes and with minimal cost. The software communicates with all sensors and manages temperature, humidity, CO2, solution composition, and irrigation schedules, as well as scheduling the switching on and off of LED lights that replace the sun. Blockchain technology will be able to guarantee the food security of the future. In the near future, it will revolutionize the supply of agri-food products by making every transaction in the supply chain transparent. It will help detect and trace, for example, the source of contamination or contamination of finished products almost instantly. It will also make it possible to control the shelf life of all products and support the development of alternative distribution channels. Food giants such as Walmart, Nestle, and many others are already working with IBM to apply blockchain to their supply chains. The next technological trend of the food future is personalized food. The concepts vary for now, from adapting your diet to your condition, reading by special wearable gadgets, to tailoring menus to your DNA. The latest idea, nutrigenomics, is based on tracking the connection between a person's DNA and their ability to digest certain foods. It's still in its infancy, but some companies such as DNA Fit, Nutrigenomics, and Habit are already offering similar services. Another unusual trend is cell farming. This process takes two forms: cell-free products made up of organic molecules such as protein and fat, but without living cells, and products made up of living cells. Should be the variants we are familiar with, but they will be made quite differently. For example, by incorporating appropriate genes into yeast cells, they can be programmed to mass-produce conventional animal products, such as milk. For example, Nature's Find founder Thomas Johnson and his team discovered a fungal microbe in the hot geysers of Yellowstone National Park that survived in subterranean temperatures of 12 degrees Celsius. Now such microbes are being fermented in the company's laboratories in Chicago, where food scientists manipulate them to imitate chicken and other foods. The company recently received $80 million in funding from investors such as Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson, and Michael Bloomberg. Interestingly enough, the project to find organisms is capable of adapting to extreme environmental conditions in Yellowstone volcanic springs and was originally funded by NASA. And the Finnish startup Solar Foods is extracting protein from the air. The food of the future, which is an alternative to plant-based meat, the developers extract it from air and electricity obtained from renewable energy sources. This results in the ability to significantly reduce the environmental impact of the food production processes themselves. The company claims that its unique single-cell protein soline, derived through a special bioprocess from electricity and air, is as environmentally friendly as possible. Its all-natural fermentation process is similar to yeast production. The protein is neutral in taste and appearance, yet rich in nutritional value. The product is due on the market later this year. Among other technologies of the future that will change our food, artificial intelligence is also worth mentioning. Now, it's mainly used for data analysis and predicting the consequences of various factors that affect the efficiency of agriculture. But neural networks can do more, from precise sorting of products to modeling the design of functional nutrients like proteins, sugar substitutes, and others in these alternative products. But even if in the future we are doomed to a standard package of vitamins, minerals, proteins, fats, and carbohydrates of unknown origin, this doesn't mean that we cannot choose to invent ways to enjoy food. Already today, there are concept and working technologies that enable different ways to deliver food to the body. The clearest example so far is vaporization, that is, turning it into steam. Eating through a nebulizer that creates edible smoke is already possible today. A working device called LaWAF was created by Harvard professor David Edwards. Options are also being developed for those in a hurry: a nutritious transdermal patch, healthy gum with different flavors, and even a project to implant a reservoir directly into the body that injects protein carbohydrate shakes into the body as needed. Some scientists believe that in the future we'll be able to compensate for some of our nutrition with sunlight. This would involve implanting microscopic photosynthetic algae under the skin. Ideally, the tiny symbiotes will create enough food to feed everyone, and the warm-bloodedness of humans will allow them to do it even so in the winter. So far, this is a science fiction project, and there's definitely not enough body surfaces to completely switch to solar batteries. But who knows, perhaps in the future, living on other planets, the ability to be powered by sunlight will help us survive. Subscribe to the Pro Robot channel, like this video, and also subscribe to us on social networks and stay up to date on the future of all tech. In the future, drones will take over the world. First, drone delivery will become customary. So, for example, the Wing Drones, a subsidiary of Alphabet, recently made their 200,000th delivery in Australia, and this is just the beginning. But if you're looking at drones right now, then 3D printers that can print any organ or letter directly on an open wound are a specific gadget for the future, and maybe the nearest one. Scientists at the Stevens Institute of Technology have developed technology to reproduce any type of tissue. It's based on microfluidics, the process of fine manipulation of liquids through tiny channels. A microfluidic printer can print biological objects on the order of tens of micrometers, comparable to a single-cell scale. The new technology will help 3D printers to do the work on the smallest scale possible today and print any structure from microfabrics and microfibers. Another amazing technology of the future will be self-charging devices powered by conserved solar energy. Researchers at the Chalmers University of Technology in Sweden and Shanghai University developed the MOST, or Molecular Solar Thermal Energy Storage Systems. The MOST system is based on specially designed molecules that change shape in contact with sunlight. The molecule is charged with solar energy and stores it until it is released and converted into electricity by a special generator. The generator itself is an ultra-thin chip that can be integrated into electronic devices such as headphones, smartwatches, and regular phones. According to the developers, this is the first step in creating self-charging electronics using the accumulated solar energy on demand. In addition to renewable energy gadgets, in the future we will wear clothing and shoes made of biodegradable materials. For example, researchers at the University of California, San Diego have made seaweed shoes. The top of the sneakers is made of three-dimensional knitwear consisting entirely of plant fibers, and the sole is made of eco-friendly polyurethane foams. All materials are completely decomposed into composite drums, in soil, or even in the ocean. Scientists have also developed an algae-based flip-flop using celiac foam. Regarding food in the future, we've told you about in the past, and you can see that link here in the tip. And here, we will clarify that delicious food. Perhaps we'll make cutlery. Kieran, along with researchers at Meiji University, came up with food sticks that give the food a more vivid and salty taste. The new electronic device sends a weak electrical current directly into the food. A wave of the right shape affects the ions in the sodium chloride, which is responsible for the salty taste. In addition, the current also affects the sodium glutamate ions, which are responsible for enhancing the flavor. Now, a little bit about where and how we live. Researchers at MIT developed a replacement for home stereo systems. Imagine the full force of effect of sound around when the speakers are actually the wallpaper in the room. Engineers have developed a thin film loudspeaker with paper thickness, and it can turn any surface into an active sound of source. The material reproduces sound with minimal distortion and high quality regardless of the surface on which it's glued. And at the same time, it consumes only part of the energy required for a traditional loudspeaker. A thin film speaker can also provide active noise reduction in places such as a cockpit. To do this, the device will create sound of the same amplitude, but with the opposite phase, compensating the source. But while we wait for MIT technology to be perfect, you can take advantage now of the Noveto N1 speakers with the unique technology of projecting sound directly into your ears. Specific ultrasonic technology is responsible for the delivery of sound strictly to a specific listener of the novelty. The tiny N1 transducers involved in sonic fusing are hidden under the fabric covers on both sides of the control panel. In this case, you can listen to the speaker at full volume, but the surrounding almost will not hear anything. At least the developers claim to have reduced the sound by 90% at a distance of 1 meter from the listener. Noveto N1 recognizes faces and adjusts to each particular user. According to the forecast of most experts, in the future, we will not be able to get away from virtual and augmented reality. So it's time to find the right glasses now. There's going to be a lot of offers coming. For example, Vive Glasses, which offers an extremely affordable and unusual approach to the world of virtual reality, appearing almost no different from glasses, say for snowboarding. They are very lightweight with lightning adjusted hands, whose movements are read by the camera, which means you don't need controllers. Another option would be to wear the NXT Wear Air Glasses, which will give you a 140-inch screen cinema from distances of 4 meters right in front of you. The headset is designed to let you enjoy your content anytime and anywhere. Want to see more gadgets for the metaverse? You can get those at the link here in the tip. And until all gadgets are connected to solar power, they can charge themselves if you have the Mi Air Charge air charger at home that uses 140 micro dishes to transfer power to your device through a narrow wave beam. According to the developers, you'll be able to enter a room and have your phone start charging, even if there's an object in the way. Xiaomi expects that the device can be used to charge multiple gadgets simultaneously in the room where it's located. And as for travel, in addition to the robotaxi promised by Elon Musk, we'll be able to move in cars that change color to the weather and our mood. The first prototype was presented by BMW. Its iX Flow model uses electronic ink technology to completely change the color scheme from black to white or any shade in the middle. It can also create complex patterns and drawings on the body. In addition to the external effect, technology allows, for example, to reduce the temperature in the cabin on a hot day by changing the color to white. And what gadgets would you like to see in the future? Let us know down in the comments. And while you're here, subscribe to the Pro Robot channel, like this video, and don't miss any new episodes from the world of high tech. For some time now, people have begun to suspect that the universe is not teeming with intelligent life forms and advanced civilizations. This is known as the Fermi paradox. A number of scholars dispute it, arguing either other civilizations have not reached the level to visit us or, on the contrary, have reached but are still observing us as a lower life form. But the fact remains that, despite the billions of years of the universe, we still see no trace of alien civilization activity whatsoever. Can we not see evidence of space galactic civilizations because none of them survived due to the resource depletion and subsequent climate collapse? And if so, will the same happen to us? Moreover, our planet Earth also has a 4.5 billion year history, and organic life has not always been part of it. All of this suggests that if we disappear, it's not that certain that we'll be able to reappear, and reasonable life form should not be taken for granted. So when the world ends, what are our options for the apocalypse? The first theory, climate disaster. The increase in greenhouse gases in the atmosphere through the combustion of fossil fuels and other human activities result in them capturing and retaining solar heat, causing an increase in global temperature and accelerating climate change. Climate change can cause hurricanes, floods, severe and prolonged forest fire seasons. There are many destructive scenarios, but the good news is that none of this is likely to cause our mass extinction, although unbridled greenhouse effects could lead to such consequences. This effect occurs when the planet falls into an insurmountable loop and absorbs more heat than it loses until the oceans evaporate and can no longer sustain life. But such a scenario is not plausible for Earth. Venus has an unbridled greenhouse effect, but it's much closer to the Sun and has much denser carbon dioxide-rich atmosphere that holds more heat than Earth. According to scientists, a global temperature rise of more than 3 degrees Celsius could cause glaciers to melt, droughts in the Amazon rainforest, collapse of our social infrastructure, and mass unrest. A future reminiscent of some Hollywood anti-utopias. All the major mass extinctions in Earth's history have been linked to climate change. For example, cooling around 400 million years ago wiped out 85% of species, and warming during the Triassic extinction around 200 million years ago, when 80% of species died. Also, although scientists don't know exactly why Neanderthals became extinct about 40,000 years ago, they suggest that climate variations played a role in this extinction. Warming also brings other dangers. At present, diseases that have not been circulating in the air for millions of years are stuck in the Arctic ice. It means that our immune system has no idea how to fight back when these prehistoric epidemics emerge from the ice. The Arctic also stores terrible disease-carrying beetles from later times. Alaska has already discovered the remains of the 1918 flu, which infected up to 500 million people and killed up to 100 million. Scientists suspect smallpox and bubonic plague are also trapped in the Siberian ice. True experts expect that many of these organisms will not actually survive the thaw, but some will survive, and this will cause a wave of new pandemics. Will all of this destroy the planet and humanity? It's unlikely. People will survive climate change to a certain extent and manage epidemics somehow. Moreover, genetic engineering is now one of the fastest growing fields of science, so to help us adapt to new conditions, we may also be able to correct our genes. The second version of the end of the world is a giant asteroid that will come from interstellar space. The fact is, all the celestial bodies in the solar system with a diameter of more than a kilometer were rewritten by NASA experts back in 2016. According to their calculations, none of these celestial bodies could collide with Earth. And yet, there are statistics that say that asteroids big enough to cause global catastrophe fall to Earth every 100 million years, and average asteroids every 120,000 years. A total of 4 impact craters with a diameter of more than 100 kilometers were found on Earth, formed by impacts of giant meteorites. This is the crater Chicxulub, which remained after the most likely killer of dinosaurs, as well as craters Friendefort, Poppyguy, and Sudbury. But today, even if a giant asteroid heads towards Earth, a collision can be predicted in decades, maybe even more. However, there are still extragalactic bodies that can appear unexpectedly. They can only be detected months before a possible impact, and if that happens in the coming years, when we don't quite have the technology to change the trajectories of these objects, the only hope is for Bruce Willis to repeat the Armageddon movie scenario. It remains to say that no matter what asteroid falls to the Earth, it can still destroy people, but the planet itself will likely continue life, and quite quickly erasing the signs of a departed civilization. The third version of an apocalypse is the eruption of a supervolcano similar to that you find at Yellowstone. About 75,000 years ago, Toba, or supervolcano in Indonesia, exploded on Earth. The explosion ejected so much dust and debris that scientists believe the Earth had cooled several degrees Celsius. Some experts believe that this has caused the largest extinction of plants and animals in human history, putting species on the brink of extinction. But how likely is all of this to happen today? Scientists tell us that supervolcanic eruptions occur on average every 17,000 years, and if that's true, we're too late. The last thing we knew about was 26,500 years ago in New Zealand. Also, one of the most dangerous supervolcanoes on the planet is Yellowstone in the United States. It erupted 2.1 million years ago, 1.3 million years ago, and 650,000 years ago, about 650,000 years apart. And it's now 650,000 years since the last eruption, and it's time for a new one. But it's impossible to predict its exact moment. It is equal for 1,000 years, starting with the next decade. This eruption may be comparable to the eruption of Mount Toba, and there's no technology to predict that in less than a couple of months, or in any way affect that process that humanity has to date. The only good thing is that planet Earth itself, again, will not be destroyed, and a handful of survivors may continue the human race. The fourth apocalypse is the rise of an artificial supermind. There's a group of scientists in the scientific community who fear that the ability of an artificial intelligence system to rewrite themselves and self-perfect may trigger an uncontrollable process or an intelligence explosion that will leave us, that is people, far behind. An artificial supermind doesn't have to be intentionally malicious to accidentally wipe us off the face of the Earth. For example, scientists believe that, on average, there's a 50% chance that by 2050, AIs will be able to perform most tasks as well or better than humans, and at least 5% chance that they will surpass human intelligence within a couple of years thereafter. The widespread fear that artificial intelligence will become malicious is actually not the right one. We should be more concerned about him getting too good at his job. As AI researchers say, if you ask an obedient, intelligent machine to get you to the airport as quickly as possible, it can take you there under the howling of police sirens and vomit, doing not what you wanted, but literally what you asked. And this is a harmless example, but if we're talking about orders from those who have access to weapons? And the second point is about artificial superintelligence, whose actions and conclusions we can't predict or manipulate at all. Is such an apocalypse even possible? So far, the opinion of scientists on this issue is strongly divided, especially since most of them have only recently begun to accept the very idea of the possibility of creating super AI. But one thing is certain: the planet will survive even this scenario. The fifth version of the apocalypse has been recently linked by a number of scientists to a new line of research by a number of scientists, namely solar geoengineering. Adherents to this concept propose to stop or even reverse global warming by spraying special aerosols in the Earth's atmosphere. This way, they can reflect the light and heat from the sun back into space. So far, the method exists only in computer models, but the researchers at Harvard are already planning the first experiment. If this plan is implemented, it will affect the entire atmosphere and become the largest global enterprise of mankind. Although this is the only known method that can stop the rise in temperature, we don't know yet about how much weather it can destabilize local and global climates or even ecosystems. Manipulation of this magnitude without understanding the consequences could be catastrophic for humanity. Still, the planet will survive our arrogance again. But the sixth scenario of the apocalypse presupposes the unconditional death of the planet Earth, and it's caused by the death of our own sun. The sun is now in the middle of its life cycle, and in about 1 billion years, it will be so hot it will be impossible to live on it. Changes will begin gradually. First, slowly, hundreds of thousands of years, the Earth's axis will unfold. It will take tens of millions of years to fundamentally change the chemistry of the air. First, the amount of carbon dioxide, then oxygen. In hundreds of million years, all the continents will become connected, and in about 1 billion years, the Earth will begin to lose its atmosphere. And when a couple of billions of years pass, the most important factor will be the inflation of the sun, i.e., its transformation into a red giant. It will consume Mercury and most likely Venus, and the Earth, even if it avoids that fate, will become too hot and unlivable. Eventually, the sun will enter the white dwarf stage. The cold remains of the surviving planets of Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn will revolve around it. The interesting thing is, if this apocalypse means the death of the planet, it doesn't mean the death of humanity. True, colonies on Mars will not save us, as it is still at the stage of the sun as a red giant will be at the very edge of the livable zone or even beyond. But if in a couple of decades, hundreds of thousands of years, we can invent technologies that will allow us to get to the Earth-type exoplanes and other planetary systems, we can survive there, and then humanity has a chance. Again, genetic engineering will help to adapt these travels and the conditions of life on other planets. The end of the world caused by the irreversible change of the sun is one of the two ends of the world that is inevitable. The second, which will certainly be the end of mankind, is the death of the universe. Even if we live near a star that looks like the sun, a few billion years from now, we're going to have to look for a new star like the sun. But they're going to run out. And all this time, the universe continues to expand and cool, and stars one by one are extinguished, and the new ones do not appear to be replacing them. Which end of the world scenario seems most likely to you personally? Let us know down in the comments. And while you're here, subscribe to the Pro Robot channel, like this video, and don't miss any new episodes from the world of science and tech. The first trend is artificial intelligence. Cities of the future will introduce automated processes as well as data-based planning approaches. The machines run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the operations and tasks that cities perform are becoming increasingly intelligent and based on artificial intelligence. Almost every citizen's behavior will be recorded with anonymous data, and 5G technology will enable cities to become huge connected ecosystems. Moreover, cities such as Dublin and Singapore are already today creating digital counterparts of their physical assets to predict future events and trends through machine learning. This could be the case for not only Singapore, but also for Cascais in Portugal. The coastal resort town with a population of 200,000 people annually attracts about 1.5 million tourists and aims to become the best place to live one day for life. To improve efficiency and infrastructure, transportation, public safety, and other services, the city has developed a large portfolio of technology services ranging from energy-efficient buildings to remote parking fees. In 2018, Cascai developed the Deloitte City Synergy Digital Command Center, the platform that supports the ecosystem management, forecasts events based on data analysis, and facilitates decision-making and urban planning. For example, by integrating data on road traffic and road conditions in real time, the system can optimize the working schedule and routes of garbage trucks, reducing operating costs down to 40%. The second trend of the future city is smart healthcare systems. Cities are responsible for creating a healthy environment. The health ecosystem should focus not only on the diagnosis and treatment of diseases, but also maintaining well-being through early intervention and preventional issues using digital technology. Scientific advances and the availability of personalized healthcare through things like genomics, micromics, metabolism, and behavioral economics. This will provide individual assistance to individuals and their families. The public health path will rely on the interoperable data and analysis to help them make good health and behavioral choices. The establishment of these systems requires, among other things, investments in the data privacy and security infrastructure. Chicago is a current example of this trend. The city's given priority to creating an interconnected ecosystem of health and well-being. Healthy Chicago 2.0 was launched in 2016 and Healthy Chicago 2025 in 2020. The programs aim at maximizing equality in health and well-being of city residents. The third trend we're going to discuss is to design cities where most services are within 15 minutes of walking or cycling from any residence. The concept of a 15-minute city was developed primarily to reduce carbon emissions in a decentralized urban planning model where each local area contains all the basic social functions for life and work. While this approach may not be fully applicable to every city, remote operation and digitization of services enhance the application of the principle of district planning. Similar versions of city cells or 20 to 30-minute blocks over the last decade have appeared all over the world. For example, in Paris, the city for a quarter hour. The initiative aims to reduce carbon emissions, prioritize pedestrians and cyclists, and decentralize the city. Priority areas include easy access to workplaces, shops, schools, clinics, and cultural activities. As part of the transportation planning, the mayor of the city announced the allocation of 350 million euros for the creation of a pedestrian zone and cycling paths on every street in the region by 2024, as well as removal of 60,000 parking spaces for private cars. The fourth trend of the future is mobility. Intelligent, sustainable, and as service. It seems that smart city IoT systems that try to optimize traffic flow to increase traffic capacity are no longer considered future directions. Today, experts believe that the future is due to the decrease in the number of cars in cities. First, the 15-minute city concept should, in principle, reduce overall intra-city traffic. Second, multimodal mobility on demand and platforms, mobility as a service, will be implemented. For example, residents will be able to plan and book door-to-door trips digitally, using the same tariff card for all models of transport and getting access to automated delivery services on the last mile with seamless payment models. An example of this would be Los Angeles, which is working to implement sustainable and intelligent mobile solutions. The city aims to reduce air pollution by accelerating the electrification of transport. Los Angeles accounts for about half of electric cars in the United States, and by 2030, the city has committed to having 5 million electric cars. Several compressed natural gas buses and about 40 zero-emission vehicle electric buses have also been launched. The LA Metropolitan Transportation Authority is expected to be electrified by 2030. And Los Angeles authorities are currently working towards air mobility. The fifth trend is the city as a digital innovation ecosystem. It implies that cities will adopt the so-called 5-tier structure of an innovation spiral involving interaction between universities, industry, government, the public, and the environment. In doing so, the city will act as a bridge, providing connectivity and infrastructure. Cities will become livable laboratories for digital transformation and centers for experimentation, using data to develop pilot projects that can be scaled. The strategy for the city of the future focuses on attracting talent. An example of this would be Espoo in Finland, which is a European leader in the innovation and sustainable smart cities. It is home to an active startup center and some of the most valuable Finnish companies, as well as the Aalto University and the Finnish Technical Research Center VVT, two important players in the innovative stage. The city has the highest density of foreign talents. Espoo seeks to position itself as a place where development takes place primarily in the interest of the inhabitants, for example, using the city as a service approach. Number 6 on our list is a smart and sustainable building and infrastructure. Buildings in the cities of the future are built with sustainable and ethical materials. They will be energy efficient, water and resource efficient, and they will be powered by renewable energy sources, and they will produce their own energy as well. They can also be covered with vertical gardens and roof gardens. They will also use data and digital technologies to enable infrastructure components to become more efficient and better adapted to be used by stakeholders. But at the same time, thanks to digitalization, the buildings will be applied individually in the field of heating and maintenance, taking into account the characteristics of each individual building. Gartner predicts that by 2028, there will be more than 4 billion IoT-connected devices in commercial smart buildings. They will be powered by 5G telecommunication infrastructure and high-efficiency Wi-Fi with Wi-Fi 6 or 6E, as well as intelligent utilities such as electricity, waste disposal, and water supply. Smart buildings will form smart neighborhoods. For example, Singapore was one of the first countries to adopt green architecture and sustainable urban planning initiatives. In 2005, they introduced the Green Mark certification scheme aimed at making buildings more environmentally friendly. The goal is now that by 2030, at least 80% of the buildings in Singapore will be green. And as of 2018, a third of the city's building areas meet this BCA Green Mark standard. The 7th trend on our list for cities of the future has nothing to do with technology. This is green planning of public spaces. Urban areas have traditionally been characterized by high population density and heavy development. They are constantly facing pressure from growing populations, limited resources, and the growing impact of climate change. And the lack of natural space creates unhealthy urban habitats. Urban green areas with pedestrian and cycling paths lower temperatures, reduce air pollution, and increase the natural sustainability of the environment, as well as contributing to the recovery of psychological health and physical activity. The Council for Global Agenda of the World Economic Forum of the Future of Cities has included greening in its list of 10 major urban planning initiatives. Today, the leader in green areas in the city is Singapore. And speaking of why is the city of the future, we've told you about, and you can see that at the link in the tip. But greening projects are taking place in much less affluent and successful cities like Freetown the Tree Town in Freetown, Sierra Leone. One of the most densely populated cities in the world, with rapid but uneven growth, has set itself a plan to plant 1 million trees in 3 years. The aim is to reduce erosion and runoff, but to increase vegetation cover in the city by 50%. The tree canopy of the city is estimated by machine learning. The planting of seedlings is carried out uniformly throughout the city, and the growing of trees is tracked with a special applicator, Tree Tracker. On our list today, the 8th trend is cybersecurity and privacy for cities of the future. An attack on an infrastructure of a smart city can lead to cascading effects and affect other parts of the city or county or country or even go beyond it. Moreover, the greater the complexity of applied technologies, operational interactions, and system management, the higher the interest of hackers in these environments. Therefore, cybersecurity issues should be taken into account even at the planning stage of a smart city. Interestingly, in recent decades, there's been an evolution in the area of cybersecurity. Initially, cities tried to build their own fortresses, but then they began to realize that using the cloud would be safer because many cloud service providers have security experts working around the clock and on weekends with great capabilities for monitoring, detecting, and preventing cyber attacks. An example of a protected cybersecurity is Tel Aviv. Faced with an ever-increasing number of cyber attacks in 2010, Israel began building a cybersecurity ecosystem that could detect and respond to threats on its own. The framework was developed jointly by the government, the military, academia, and the business sector, and today, the Israeli cybersecurity industry accounts for 31% of global investments in this sector. The ninth trend of cities of the future is also the most controversial, and it's the use of artificial intelligence for police surveillance and forecasting. How can human rights, data privacy, and surveillance be respected in the interest of security as well as predictive, i.e., predictive policing? Despite the debate about ethics, the pace of the introduction of neural networks for security purposes has increased in recent years. The use of intelligent solutions such as biometrics, facial recognition, intelligent cameras, and video surveillance systems is increasing. A recent study showed that smart technologies can help cities reduce crime rates by 30 to 40% and reduce the response time of emergency services by 20 to 35%. The same study found that cities have begun to invest in real-time crime mapping, riot control, and gunshot detection. Cities use face recognition and biometrics, car and body cameras for police, drones, and aerial surveillance, as well as emergency applications for public safety. An example of implementation is the city of Kanagawa in Japan. In preparation for the Tokyo Olympics, the Japanese police launched an intelligence system with artificial intelligence support. It's able to determine whether the same person has committed more than one crime by comparing data relating to each crime. Using this information, the AI can predict the next move of the criminal. But in Japan, there's a more interesting example in the city of the future. 90 kilometers from the Japanese capital Tokyo, at the foot of the famous Mount Fuji, the Toyota Automotive Corporation is building something massive. We're talking about a modern, innovative city of about 700,000 m2, which will be built from scratch. Woven City is created on the basis of three principles: human-centered, respect and prioritization of people's needs; living laboratory, which allows you to easily test new technologies in real conditions; and constantly developing, an approach through which new technologies and services are constantly being expanded and improved. It's known that the Japanese city of the future will operate solely on clean energy, and the houses will be built mainly out of wood. And in doing so, they'll be as well equipped as possible with robotics, artificial intelligence technology, and other systems that will check the health of inhabitants, take care of their basic needs, and improve their daily life. The city will be covered with vegetation growth, inter alia, without the use of soil, and its center will be a huge park and area for meetings of the local community. People, buildings, and vehicles in the city will be connected through data and sensors. In the Woven City, it's planned to build three types of roads: for Toyota e-Pallets unmanned vehicles, pedestrians and personal vehicles, like bicycles and scooters. According to the authors, all three types of streets will be interwound to form a single organic network. An underground road will also be built to transport cargo. Nissan Food Products, which offers innovative products based on the latest development in molecular nutrition science, will be responsible for the city's food. The food will be exceptionally healthy, tasty, and personalized. Woven City should become the laboratory on how to develop technologies to improve the quality of life of people and solutions to social problems. And here will be tested innovations in the field of robotics, artificial intelligence, unmanned transport, and smart homes. The project is promising, and we are following the daily progress. And what kind of future city do you see? Let us know down in the comments. And while you're here, you know the drill. Like this video, subscribe to our channel, and don't miss any new episodes from the world of robotics and high tech.